Anyway, it's King's Day.
It is King's Day.
Oh, how great is it?
It is great. I was going to go on a distasteful tangent, but no, let's focus on King's Day.
Let's focus on King's Day.
Yes.
Yay, happy
It
King's
really
Day.
is, yeah. It is Friday. It is King's Day. We have a mystery, but we also have celebrations.
Yeah.
We have orangeness,
Yeah.
I suppose.
You have beer, I have some bubbly
Yeah,
celebration.
Well, I mean, it is the amber tones that are technically not orange, but slightly closer than the bubblies, I think.
Do you want to cheers?
Cheers.
Cheers. Prost.
True.
I was tempted
Today
to make
would
us...
be the day to say Prost.
Yeah, it's true. I was tempted to make us orange cocktails, and then I decided, in the spirit of King's Day, let's be lazy, because this is the day kids do all the stuff, and grown-ups basically do nothing other than wander around and drink.
And possibly freak out over their wonderful heirlooms that the kids are trying to sell.
I really hope people have heirlooms, like whenever they've like glued the kid's first haircut onto ornaments and stuff.
This is actually less an actual language issue and more the fact that I had a movie night recently with a friend, and we saw, because they hadn't seen Django Unchained. So we saw Django Unchained.
I haven't seen it in ages.
Like, for some reason, there are a lot of things happening in that movie.
Yeah.
But the one thing that got stuck in my head was Leonardo DiCaprio talking about white cake.
Oh, I think he and Samuel L. Jackson are the reason I can never watch that movie again, because both of them are just the creepiest.
They are. It's brilliant acting.
No,
It is
but
brilliant
no,
acting.
but no, thank you.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. It was still bad.
It's kind of once, isn't it? I feel that way about all recent Tarantino movies. It's like, no, just I'm good, thank you.
I completely get that stance. I think it's brilliant performances, but like in this instant, that was a language issue.
Hey.
It's just like for some reason we focus so much on like how many times they squeeze in his very weird, over-exaggerated southern pronunciation of having like an H. We're talking 3 times the font size at the start of the word white cake. So I've been very, H heavy leading into words nowadays. I think that got into the heirlooms.
That's that's not it should not be your linguistic role model.
No.
Ugh. I am a
Wait,
bit sad.
I just had a flashback. You actually, at some point in some episode, you likened me to a southern gentleman.
Oh.
And that's kind of why I said, ooh. But yes.
I don't remember which episode it was.
Me neither, and I don't remember the context. But
There are too many now.
never mind.
If you remember, let us know.
Were you a bit sad?
I'm sad that it's raining. Yeah.
Oh, but rain is cozy.
Yeah, okay. It's good for King's not night, King's Day. Avond. Yeah. So King's Night, let's make things a bit clearer.
Yes, we need to clarify.
Shall I just tell a little bit more about King's Day?
I think you should educate our wonderful listeners, and hopefully I can learn something as well. But I'm feeling relatively informed here for once.
Okay. Well, King's Day is on the 27th of April every year. Do you know what date it's held on? If the 27th of April is a Sunday?
The 26th?
Yay! Yes, it is. And do you know why it's held on the 27th of April?
Because of Billy Boy's birthday?
Nope.
No.
Well, it depends
Did
who you
they
mean by
change it?
Billy Boy. Do you mean William of Orange, yeah?
Yeah.
No.
Did they change that?
Yeah, and it's even
I
changed
forgot
since
that.
you've been living over here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you the story of the essentially it's arguably the biggest Dutch national holiday. Everyone's off work, and kids essentially go out into the streets or into the parks and sell their old toys or their junk, or they make like really nasty arts and crafts projects and, you know, ask for 50 cents or €1 for stuff. Or they set up like little games, and I feel like it goes sort of like Santa. Like as kids get older, they still want to participate, even though they think maybe I can't get away with it anymore.
Oh, yeah.
So then you end up with like kids a bit older that are still trying to make money. So they might make buns or like drinks or something like that. Or you get teenagers going, throw a sponge at me for €1 ago, and then you get other ones going, throw an egg at me for €2 ago. And yeah, it's just, some of them are pretty brutal. Like there were really men and women with anger issues taking running starts on throwing eggs at kids last year.
I have not seen these.
Oh yeah, you need to see that
I
this
mostly
year.
focus on the people like selling books and selling movies, or as we discussed earlier, puppets.
Yeah.
And puppets, which I was very happy about. But
yeah,
I've not seen those, I
I
guess.
don't know, there's some like kids out there who are like, yeah, why not? And you know what? If they walk away with €50 or €100 from it, then
That's pretty
I
much.
mean, is it worse than paintballing? Maybe not. I mean, think about the bruises you end up from doing paintballing or airsoft.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, so
Well, I
it's
know
okay.
paintballing, not airsoft. Well,
I've
yes,
never
I
done
do
airsoft either,
actually.
actually.
I've never done it with bunny rabbit ears, but I've been shot with soft air guns. So
Okay, I'll give you the highlights reel. The first time the holiday was observed was on the 31st of August. Yes, 31st of August, 1885. And it was known as Princess's Day.
okay.
So Prinsesse Dag. And it was the 5th birthday of Princess Wilhelmina, who at the time was the heir to the Dutch throne. Her father actually died when she was 10. So she ascended to the throne on November 1890. And then the holiday became known as Queen's Day. And was then celebrated as that from 1891. It was then in September 1948 when her daughter ended up ascending to the throne, so that would be Queen Juliana. And it ended up moving to the 30th of April to match her birthday. Yeah. And when Juliana's daughter Beatrix, who you know because that was the queen when you moved
Oh,
here,
yes.
and me, whenever she ended up ascending to the throne, she decided to keep it on the 30th of April, even though her birthday was in January, because 31st of January is way too cold to have King's Day, I guess.
Oh.
Or maybe she was like...
I missed
yeah.
that. I thought it was still birthday
No.
in her time. Oh,
No, so
okay.
it was 31st of August since Wilhelmina. Then whenever it went to her daughter, Juliana, it moved to the 30th of April. And whenever it moved to her daughter, Beatrix, it was kept on the 30th of April, even though Beatrix's birthday is the 31st of January. So whenever in, what was it, 2013? Yeah, in 2013... Queen Beatrix actually abdicated on Queen's Day.
Oh, it's 13. I thought we said 14 last episode.
Well,
but
that's the thing.
correction.
No, it's
Oh.
not a correction.
Oh, okay.
She abdicated on Queen's Day 2013, so that was the last Queen's Day.
Yes.
And
then the
exactly a
next
year
one is the
later,
King's Day, yeah.
Her son, King Willem, well, now King Willem Alexander, had his first King's Day, but instead of celebrating it on the 30th of April, they moved it forward to his birthday, which is the 27th. So, yeah, that is the story of how we ended up with Queen's Day and King's Day.
But then it is his birthday now.
It is his birthday now.
Oh, okay.
So it is on his birthday now, but you said King Billy. King William. Which to us, King Billy is like William of Orange, like William the First. William the First? I think it's William the First.
Wait, no, wait, what's the actual name of the king right now?
Willem Alexander.
Willem. Oh, okay.
So
Yes.
I get
Yes.
what you-
I was going for something like that. Okay. I meant the current king, sorry.
Oh, that was totally unclear. That's why I'm like King Billy.
That is on me. That is on me.
Oh dear. Well,
yes.
you were originally right then.
William, come on.
But yeah, so as we briefly mentioned in the last episode, yeah, the first ever King's Day, ever King's Day was 2014. And yeah, it's only been moved 3 days now. But that's kind of cool that the birthdays, like, it was on his grandmother's birthday and now it's on his.
Definitely.
But there was actually a really horrible thing that happened on the 2009 Queen's Day.
Oh, yeah.
So traditionally, the Dutch royal family will go out among the people and, whenever it was Princess's Day and Queen's Day, with Wilhelmina and Juliana, the tradition was to have a flower parade at the Zeust Palace. So there would just be a big, huge parade in, not super south, but south of the Netherlands. But whenever it came to Maxima, was it Maxima?
Maximus, or current queen.
Sorry. Whenever it came to Beatrix, she decided to change the tradition and started visiting little Dutch towns every year to bring her kids along and just enjoy the festivities and turn it into a thing, which I also guess it's better to do when it's not your birthday, because then you get to still have your birthday.
Fair point, yeah.
And your kids get to go and have fun and do the whole celebrations of their mum.
Yeah.
So every year they go to a Dutch town and there's a whole big thing and it's super exciting. But the 2009 one was pretty bad. The royal family was in an open top bus and it was making a turn towards the palace of Low. Okay, you need to cut this. It was making its last turn towards the palace in Apeldoorn. When a black older model Suzuki Swift crashed through onlookers. It just missed the bus, but slammed into people in the crowd and slammed into a big royal monument called the Nald. Yeah, it was really brutal. Essentially, 8 people ended up dead. Not all of them at the scene. There were 17 injured at the scene. And by the end of it, 8 people, if you include the driver of the car, ended up dead. No one in the royal family was harmed, but as with any of the big King's Day or Queen's Day celebrations, the whole thing was being broadcast live.
Of course.
And the royal family were right there and saw the whole thing. So you can imagine the camera crews are all flicking between the royals' reaction to the horrific scenes and what's going on. There was also a picture of the driver of the car. He had a pretty severe head injury after the crash, and there was a photo taken right inside the cab of him, and it won the journalistic photography prize that year.
Oh,
which is kind of horrible, but also, yeah, we sort of talked about it last week, or sorry, on Monday, and it's very strange. But it is a little bit of a mystery because the guy was a 38-year-old Dutch guy. He was called Karst Roland Tate, and he was rescued from the car at the scene, and he later died in hospital. But yeah, he was just a guy from a small town in the east of the Netherlands. He had no criminal record. There was no traces of alcohol in his system. And he actually called his mum the day before to say, I'm really looking forward to your birthday on the 3rd of May. And there was seemingly no motive, and no one really knew why it happened. And the police determined it was a premeditated attack, but it was really poorly planned. There was some speculation that it was because he'd lost his job as I think it was a night shift security guard, and he just wanted to take it out on people. But he was also facing eviction from his house. But yeah, the whole thing is really brutal. Because he died, of course, he was never prosecuted. He never received anything, and the royals were pretty quick to act in response. Like the Queen at that time, Beatrix, of course, she released a video message to the public within a couple of hours of the attack, and it was pretty emotional. So she said, "What started out as a beautiful day has ended in a terrible tragedy that has shocked all of us. People who were standing nearby, people who saw it happen on television, all those who witnessed it must have been watching in astonishment and disbelief. We, the royal family, are speechless that something so terrible could have happened. My family, myself, and I think every person in the country feels for the victims, their families and friends, and all those who've been affected by this incident." the spontaneous reaction throughout the country was to lower the flags to half-mast, and it's really like, anyone who's listening to this, Google some pictures of King's Day or Queen's Day in the Netherlands. It's incredible, and the atmosphere is amazing, and everyone's dressed in orange, and it's there. It's just nice. It feels very inclusive, and when you're in the middle of it, it's pretty lovely. So this happening on an event like this, it's awful, and especially with so many kids around, and it's all being broadcast out to people across the country. But yeah, people are lowering their flags to half-mast, which is really not normal without instruction. And on Queen's Day or King's Day in particular, it's like that's the day you have the flag up at all.
Yeah.
And you fly flags with like an orange banner across it. It's a thing. And later, even the Prime Minister actually announced that they wanted to fly the flags to half-mast, but it was already happening. What they did do is a year later, almost a year later, the day before the 1-year anniversary of what happened, they unveiled a monument remembering the 7 victims, excluding, of course, the 8th person who died from it. And the monument is beautiful. I think I might have shown you it last week. It's like a silver box with 7 white balloons and some blue balloons in it. So the balloons are all made of glass.
Oh yeah. That is also very Dutch. The blue white ball thing as well.
Yeah, it's stunning. So it's described as representing vulnerability, festivity, and mourning. And I think it's kind of beautiful that they do the balloons in there, because it is so festive, but it's also so reverent, and like it's. I think it's a really beautiful tribute, but it's also really sad. So on the one hand, it's nice that the day has been moved, because next week we can actually remember the victims of this and think about, hey, it may be an amazing day, but bad things have happened on it and they should be remembered. And bringing it back from that, you look I'm sorry.
I got brought down a bit, but
I can
contemplative, but there's also a lot to celebrate.
Yeah.
In conjunction with this. And today especially, so we should be happy today.
Yeah. I think it's we need a segue. I think as sad as it is, it's important to remember that something bad happened. And it was people who were probably celebrating just like we are.
True.
So, on that note, let's lift the spirits.
With even more gruesome crime?
Yeah, I don't know. With gruesome crime from times ago involving blue blood, because that's apparently our theme this week. We're moving away from Dutch crimes. I'm definitely... Yeah, I know you are as well.
Yeah, I'm not anywhere near the Netherlands. It's not that far back in my case, though.
Oh, really?
Not really.
Oh, mine's kind of far back, but yours is far away. Mine's near-ish. But I
Pretty
think,
close, yeah.
Yeah, I think we already established that you're worse this week.
I'm feeling rather confident on that point, yes.
Would you like to tell me your story then?
I do. I really do.
Okay, great.
My story this week concerns, and I'm so sorry, but I'm going to butcher a lot of names in this episode. This story concerns Dipendra Bir Shah.
That doesn't sound very Nepalese. That sounds quite Swedish.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I really hope it didn't.
I
sound
wonder
Swedish,
how many Nepalese people have ever had their names pronounced in a Swedish accent, though. I think it's cool. It's totally cool. Oh no, dude, you're good. I'm just being.
I don't know what I was going for.
I think you're just sing-songy. It's so lovely and sing-songy, and then I hear the Swedish.
But I'm going to let you try this name later as well.
Oh, are we playing this game?
I'm tempted to.
Oh dear.
Due to this, barrage.
I can dish it out. I don't know if I can take it. Let's find out.
But Dipendra was the penultimate king of Nepal. As you already positioned, this is from Nepal.
Okay, cool.
So this wasn't that long ago. So we're talking turn of the millennium-ish for the most of it here. As the crown prince, Deepinder was first educated on the base level in Kathmandu.
Okay.
Then he attended Eton College, which I know.
In England.
Yes.
Yeah. Most of our listeners are in the US, so I don't think they know what Eton is.
Yeah.
Eton, shall I do it or shall you?
Please go ahead.
High level, Eton is a very prestigious for you Americans. You North Americans, I will describe it as a private school, but in reality you call it a public school in the UK, which even though it's not, it's a private school, but if you say public school boy, it means that you're privately educated. Anyway,
Of course.
so sorry, Americans, I know it's super weird. I have no explanation. But Eton is very, very prestigious, essentially a high school. But there's going to be some English person listening to this rolling their eyes going, you did not just call Eton a high school, because it's really not okay. It's been around hundreds of years. It's kind of like where I believe there are more students that come from Eton than any other secondary school and go to an Oxford University.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's there's a big connection with one more than the other, but I can't remember which way it goes.
Huh.
But Eton is an incredibly old, incredibly prestigious, probably incredibly expensive school that is very much old money, not new money. If you're new money, you wouldn't go to Eton necessarily. It's yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Went to Eton. Okay.
He did go to Eton.
That's painting an interesting. Well, of course, he's a royal. Okay, get it. I get it.
There's a lot of that from what I understand.
Yeah.
But after Eton, he went back to Nepal university, and then also a military academy, also in Nepal.
Okay.
For his master's and doctorate, he studied geography, which I found slightly unexpected, but I'm not sure why.
I have to say, like, any of the people I know that study geography, I'm just like, ooh, rolling my eyes at you. Don't get me wrong. I dated one, and it was super interesting to hear all about the names of all the different clouds and different rocks and stuff. Yeah, they did that in geography at our schools.
What, clouds?
Yeah, really. Nimbus.
Like branching into the geology is one thing, but clouds?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was really like, there's something quite romantic about lying back in the grass in a park and having your significant other point out the clouds and name them all. It's like, yeah.
I'm all for that, but I'm not seeing the connection to geography, to be honest.
I don't know. And there's a lot of that with the geography of anyone. Like, I'm not saying all geography courses are like this, but anyone I know who studied geography, this is the sort of stuff they came out with. Like, things
Fair
that
enough.
just didn't make a lot of sense. And it just seemed completely irrelevant. And it's one of those things that anyone I know fell into it because they didn't know what else to do and they were good at it. It's as simple as that. So
Fair point.
I'm sitting here rolling my eyes going, okay. Not that I knew what I wanted to do, but I knew it wasn't geography.
I was in a similar position, I'll say. I don't know what to take from this, but okay.
Eton, geography.
Yes.
Military
Eton,
school. Oh, dude, this is a bad combination.
I know military academy. I mean, it's not that weird when talking royals in general.
Yeah, no, I know that, but I'm also like, I bet their military academy is a bit different from like the average person's military experience.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have any insight there.
It must be. It can't be the same. All the stories I've heard from people in the military have been just like carnage.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, okay. I probably helped a bit with that, but no.
No, I don't even know any stories from you. Like, so there's...
Wow, I managed to get through all this time and not tell you a single fucking military story. That's amazing. I want this on record. This is brilliant.
I mean,
Thank
I
you.
can pick your brain afterwards, but like, I've heard so many military stories over the year, and most of them aren't clean, but one of the clean ones was about essentially pulling a fire hose in the middle of the night on an entire platoon full of people just because you're all completely bored and like, why not? I'm up at 2 or 3 in the morning and I've been off base drinking even though shouldn't have been, so it just soaks everyone.
I can see that happening.
I can't imagine this dude, like, well, maybe the one holding the fire hose, but definitely not the one in bed getting spritzed.
You never know.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah,
are you running a list of all the stories you need to tell me?
No. I right now was actually trying to make sure that I think I've heard way worse, like carnagey things from, fifth hand Eton stories, but stuff.
Yeah, but that's a whole, like, public school boys are like, they're the worst. Like, I lived with one for a while, and no, I've lived with several. So one. And to be fair to him, he was from an old money family, but went to a new money school, so it could have been a lot worse.
Oh.
But he was kind of slumming it in a student house, proving to his parents that, like, I can live with the common folk. And actually, it still wasn't that bad a place. And, well, I mean, he did all right. We had a laundromat right across the road. A dry cleaners right across the road. And whenever all of his clothes ran out, he would bring all of them, including his bed sheets, because that's how he knew when to have his bed sheets cleaned, when he ran out of all clothes. Yes, exactly. So we would bring them all across the road to the dry cleaner place, and they would just, literally everything. So there'd be a day that he's walking around in jean shorts and no underwear and no t-shirt on and like weird flip-flops. That's laundry day. And yeah, so I don't know when those jean shorts ever got washed. I'd never thought about it until now. That's so gross. That is so gross. But yeah. So he would be like this for a day, and then the bags would come back from the dry cleaner place, and they were like yellow plastic sort of bin bag things, and the sheets would go back in the bed, and everything else would stay folded and ironed in the bags, and he'd just take them all out until they were all done again, and then repeat the cycle. And his mother would come over every so often and so it was 3 girls and 2 guys in the house. And his mother would come over and tell me and the other 2 girls, like, you need to make sure he washes his sheets every couple of weeks, and you need to do this. It's like, yes, Mrs. Da-da-da. We'll definitely do that, Mrs. Da-da-da. It's like, yeah, we're not his mother. But no, he decided it would be fun to take a circular saw to an oil drum with petrol fumes in it. And you can imagine how that went. So... 4 fire engines and a couple of police cars later, and this is in Belfast, so everyone thinks it's a bomb that's gone off. Like, people were freaking out. All the windows in our house at the back of the house were blown in. He was very, very lucky. He only needed something like 70 stitches in his face, and he had a shattered bone in his hand and whatever else. I have some pictures. They're interesting. Have I really not told you this before?
No, you have not.
Oh, I have some really good pictures. Yeah, and the thing went up in the air and took tiles off the roof, destroyed the guttering. Like, the amount of damage it caused was unbelievable, and it was a bank holiday weekend in May. So we had to survive like a long weekend with no windows in I mean, it wasn't a terrible area, but it was a pretty bad area, and everyone knew that we were the house that got the windows blown in. So like, one of us had to stay up all night each night keeping guard before the landlord could be informed on Monday morning or Tuesday morning, I guess, when the office reopened. And people came around, and we had the bill. And I mean, we weren't dealing with it. He was going to have to deal with it. And they said, if you pay within 2 weeks or something, then we'll give you a discount. So he had to call his parents. And after all the spiel of, I can do it on my own, it was, yeah, I think I remember hearing the conversation. It was along the lines of, don't worry, no one's hurt. I just, there's been some damage to the house and I'm responsible. So his mummy and daddy wrote a check, and it was all good. And he had to have only liquid food for about 3 weeks. So because his
Wait, where did he? Oh, right.
his
the
face was
stitches
so
in the
badly,
face.
like
Oh,
it was
right,
all
right.
around his lips, and it was totally swollen. He's totally
Sorry,
fine.
I actually managed to forget about the actual injury, and
It was
I
really
saw that
serious.
as a consequence of like him being punished for messing up and having no, and he was only allowed liquid food.
We literally, so we had a cutlery drawer. It had, knives, forks, spoons, straws. It was like that for a month. It was really bad. But he, yeah, I mean, he was in good, like he showed up from the hospital at 2, 3 in the morning and like just looked like, I'm so sorry. And he had the pure guilt face and we're like, we're just worried about you. It's fine. This is going to be a really great story. And
Yes, it turned out to be.
yeah, I was actually in high school at the time. I was 18 and doing my end of high school exams. And I had to call my school and say, hey, I'm not going to be in today because my flatmate blew up our house. And I was already the only kid that wasn't living at their parents' place. So it was like already sort of a big deal. And all my flatmates are in their 20s at uni. And I called them out and they really thought I was taking the piss. And I'm like, no, seriously, I can send you the news article. And it was just what happened. But
Gorgeous
yeah.
stuff.
So, no, point is, public school boys are the worst.
Fair enough.
Oh.
I'm still trying to, adapt the public school image on that, but yes, I'll get there in the
private
end.
school boy. It just doesn't sound right.
No, I mean, if that's what being said, then that's what being said.
Yeah, but I mean, that's the British way.
Yeah.
The American way is the exact opposite, quite logically. Tell us how this goes. Sorry, I'm gonna stop interrupting.
We were talking about a crime.
Yeah, we were.
Yeah, so, yes, he Eton studied geography, all these things. I'm going to read off a lot of possibly conflicting statements.
Am I going to enjoy it?
Well, we'll see.
I think I will.
Hopefully.
This sounds like something that's right up my alley.
So, some sources say that Dipindra had a history of fear and anger. He had been apparently reprimanded several times due to repeated drunkenness and rowdiness at Eton.
Okay. Which sounds like par for the course. Like it's pretty standard.
Kind of, but also if you're reprimanded for it, it might be, that raises the bar a bit from what my, preconceived notions are, at least. So there were reports of there were fights and violent quarrels. That's quoted.
Violent quarrels. That's so old school.
It was a quote I found, and I could not include it.
No, I like it. Good choice.
And supposedly he had a history of alcohol and drug abuse. Also, in particular, connected this image of him was his mother, the Queen, who apparently did not approve of him, and some sources say that he spent most of his childhood in fear of her.
Oh.
But a lot of other sources also describe him, like mention how he was viewed as like the carefree and happy prince. He was like very often like smiling. He was very progressive and modern compared to what they'd gone through in Nepal, especially with the royals. And he was like modern, looking towards more of a modern and democratic outlook in general. So yeah, there are a lot of conflicting reports on this, and we'll get worse conflicting reports when we go into what happened during the 1st of June 2001.
I forgot this was crime, not history.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So 2001, it's still, a hefty way. People will soon... No, okay, it's 1 year. The crime is almost drinking age over here, but not quite. In the, Narayaniti Royal Palace... Narayaniti? I don't know.
I would say Narayaniti. I can't see it written down.
No. There are a couple of letters missing.
Oh, can I see? Can I see? Can I see? Or is it gonna ruin it?
It's the bolded line there.
Oh, Narayanhiti. Oh.
Not
Dude.
I
No,
don't know.
don't ignore me. Whoa, you do you. Like, those were good words before I started going, can I have a look?
We're going to the 1st of June. There was a dinner party with the royal family.
Okay.
This was kind of a regular thing. There were some conflicting accounts that I read, but in general, recurring like family thing. But royals and the palace, so people stuff.
Yeah.
According to the reports, and these that I'm recounting now is mostly, let's say, the official eyewitness report from the palace, let's say.
Okay. That means it happened in the palace or around the palace?
Oh yeah, in the palace. So this is all connected to the dinner party.
Yeah. It's just, I had a dinner party in mine on Monday, and I mean, it didn't happen there. This is building up.
I'm trying to.
I'm excited. Why am I excited? Stop saying you're excited. Shh.
I'm not sure if I should soften the blow or just prepare you.
No, just keep going.
Okay. So, according to these reports, the event was kicking off. All the guests hadn't arrived, but people are trickling in and getting in. So people are spread around the rooms. They have they have the dining room. They have like a lounge thing with the pool table and all that stuff. At the start, the Penner was he was seen drinking, but didn't seem to be excessively.
Okay.
But around 8 in the evening, he calls an aide and asks to be brought cigarettes. And this is a quote: "A special kind of cigarette prepared with a mixture of hashish and another unnamed black substance, as per order."
What is the unnamed black substance? Cause,
No clue. It's
okay, because
unnamed.
I'm like, apparently I don't know drugs, because what is the stuff you're putting in your joint, sir?
I do not know. And it was unnamed. And yet again, there are doubts to this entire
Could it have been opium?
line, though.
Because we're doing full circles, the first episode, Count of Monte Cristo.
Oh, yeah.
In the Count of Monte Cristo, the book, Edmond Dantes, or the Count, used to carry little spherical tablets in a box on his person, and they were a mixture he described as hashish and opium, and he didn't sleep, but he would take a couple of these and he would sleep for a specific amount of time.
I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah. I have no idea. Can you smoke? Yeah, you must be able to smoke opium because of opium dens and all that. Yeah, of course.
Opium pipes. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I wonder.
But yeah, so this is, according to witness statements, the order of the cigarette black substance. Booyah. Soon after this, the Penner is stated to start behaving like he's like ridiculously drunk. He starts swaying and slurring and just going about just looking very, very intoxicated.
Well, magic pills do that, don't they?
It's possible in special
the
cigarettes.
magic joint, yeah.
True.
It was a Jeffrey.
A Jeffrey.
Oh, there's a song. I'll share it with you later.
Please do. But the next thing we know is that before 9, he called his fiancée, the Vianney Rana.
Very nice.
And he told her it was a really short call, but he told her that he was going to go to sleep and that they would talk tomorrow.
I mean, I guess that's what you do when you're drunk. You call people and go, hi, it's so great to speak to you. I'm going to call you tomorrow.
Pretty much, yeah.
But whenever you're reading it, I'm just like, why? Why would you call them to say, hi, I'm going to talk to you tomorrow, night?
I would appreciate it, but still.
And I'm antisocial. Hello.
But also a side note regarding his fiancée, there was a lot of friction there as well, because his family did not quite approve of him marrying her.
Okay.
And they had, I think it was mostly the mother leading this anti-charge, so they had threatened to basically disown him and remove his claim if he went through with the marriage. as far as I understand, the clear sources are partially a caste and family thing. I heard one source, which I'm not sure how much I can trust it, but it did mention that apparently, like going back way back in history,
Yeah.
with the lineages, that there were like different families or tribes that had been like very much rivals between the queen's family and her family.
Oh, I love rivalry stories.
But that I couldn't find a second confirmation of, so take it with a grain of salt.
Okay.
But no, family didn't approve. But he made the phone call. He told her that. The next thing we know about, he was in his room. He got undressed and changed into his army fatigues,
Yeah.
like full on camouflage and everything.
What?
And he comes out of his bedchamber with weapons,
Whoa.
a lot of weapons.
I mean, I
We're
thought he
talking
was
a-
playing dress up, but
We're talking a bag full, like a duffel bag full of weapons.
what? This is what? You picked a really oh, you were sure you were worse. This isn't gonna this okay.
No.
Oh dear.
No and yes. Yes.
Okay.
So with this new getup, he walked back to the main party. He
Oh
pulled
no.
out a combat shotgun and he fired on his father, King Birindra. After the first shot, he shot a few times up in the ceiling.
What are the party guests doing at this point? I assume they're not going, oh, is there any more of those nice shrimp vol au vents? Because I haven't
would've-
seen them out.
I would have assumed that they would have just freaked out, but according to the official statement and witness statement, they rushed to the king's aid,
Good for them.
tried to help him. As they did that, after he had shot to the ceiling a bit,
Yeah.
the Pindra walked out of the room, back to outside where he had his bag full of weapons, and he pulled out an assault rifle, walked back in, and was heading to shoot his father again.
Why? Okay, fine. Sorry.
We
That was a pretty like
Yes.
yeah. Why anything hand gesture?
no,
Did that all by just opening your palm. Very nice job. It was very
well,
expressive.
they are big and expressive.
You're
hands.
as expressive as a raccoon is with a hand. It's very, very good.
I'm going to choose to take that as a compliment.
It was
Thank you.
meant as a compliment.
Thank you. So yeah, he got the assault rifle, went in, and very clearly aimed to shoot his father again.
Okay.
At this point, his uncle tries to talk him down and like get a stop on this, but Benra shot him in the chest, and after this, everything went crazy. So he.
It's not crazy enough.
It does get worse. So after he just started shooting wildly at everyone, basically.
Yeah.
Like putting several rounds into most of his family members and their spouses, and whomever was there, basically.
Yeah.
And so went from very focused towards the father to like, no, shooting anyone with a pulse, basically.
Whoa.
According to the statements, it was very methodical but still chaotic. But like he shot all the people, shot all of his relatives, kind of like shot them, paused to see if they were like moving, then either shooting them more or going on to the next person.
That's awful.
It was like minor trying to confirm that they were dead.
That's so...
Yeah, this is kind of an abridged, slightly less gory version as well.
Thank you for that. Ooh.
The very last one he shot was his mother, who had kind of followed him during the latter bit of this, trying to talk him down.
I mean, to be fair, good for her. Like, I don't think, like, I mean, you don't know. You don't know how you'd respond, but like, yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
so yeah, she was following him, trying to talk him down. But towards the end, he turned around, he turned his weapon on her. She tried to run away, but he shot her down.
Wow.
Then finally, he walked up to they had like a small bridge crossing a stream in the palace garden,
Yeah.
and he shot himself in the head.
Wow.
However,
What?
he didn't die,
No.
but ended up in a coma.
No.
And a lot of sources are a bit iffy. Like the majority I've checked, I think he spent it was less than 3 days in a coma before he actually finally died.
Oh.
But during this period, when he was in a coma,
Yeah.
since the rest of the direct line of succession was killed,
Yeah.
he was anointed and crowned king.
No. No. Oh, no.
In a
How is
coma.
that okay?
And so he was king for somewhere between 1 and slightly less than 3 days.
What?
Yeah.
That is the weirdest thing.
But then he died. And you remember as well, I did say penultimate king.
You did.
But we'll get to that. So a lot of people have questioned the witness statements here and the supposed sequence of events.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of conspiracy theories.
Understandably.
I've also, so for this crime, I was mostly reading articles and trying to check written sources.
Okay.
But at one point when I was looking for pronunciation help, which I couldn't do before we started recording, unfortunately, so I forgot about that because I started seeing more things. And on some news, like reporting from this, this basically started a lot of basically riots as well, and there were a lot of aggressive opposition back and forth when this happened, because like some people were fully on board with this story, some people said no, there's no way this guy could have done all this. And like helping all the conspiracy theories, there are a lot of, let's say, strange factors here.
Okay.
First off, there was basically like no security and very few aides in the palace when this happened.
Yeah.
This can be debatable, but it's still held up by a lot of people. Dipendra was right-handed.
Yes.
But he was shot in his left temple.
Oh, I'm trying to work that out. That's
It's not impossible that you just have the gun.
But the thing
still,
is, why would you do it like that? You just wouldn't.
Kind of. Third point, Prince Gyanendra.
Yeah.
Sorry. Dipendra's uncle and the final successor to the throne. He was not at the party. Also, Gyanendra's son was at the party.
Yeah.
But he was basically the only one in the core family that managed to escape.
Okay.
And to top it all off, it was like a ridiculously short investigation to all this. I think everything was shut down after 2 weeks with like barely any forensic evidence at all.
Oh dear.
So, yeah, this was apparently very...
What do you think happened?
I don't know. Like the
left temple right-handed thing is enough that makes me go,
It's enough to think, but I mean, it's not impossible, especially if you're in the influence and you have the gun in that hand already.
No.
It's not impossible.
No, but why would you?
In conjunction with all these other things. And like the thing that stands out most to me is how all of what I've told you on the sequence of events here, that was the very first reported things, and that was very much based on witness statements from the palace.
Who was left alive though?
Yeah, I mean, basically none of the core family or the core succession, apart from the later king's son. But I mean, there was staff and aides and stuff like that. Even though some were injured as well, I think. Yeah. Mostly, they were the ones who got out alive. And yeah, I realized as I dug deeper that all of the initial reported sounded very towards painting this prince in a certain light.
Yeah.
But you never know, because it could just be that he had this outward persona that people really latched onto that wasn't at all what he was about, and he kind of freaked here. Like, I think the main theory on he freaked out and he went on a murder spree was basically the disapproval of the family, the fact that they did not accept his betrothal.
Betrothed?
His betrothal?
I mean, betrothal, is that... Okay.
That's a word, right?
No, it's a word. I'm just... I dare not question your... yeah.
Yeah, that sounds very...
It just sounds
like
funny.
there's a lack of agency from the people involved. Yeah.
Word for word what I was going to say.
Oh, thank you.
No, really not. But it's what I mean with those eyebrow movements.
I read them. It's
Thank
fine.
you. I'm glad you can translate an eyebrow to real English.
I do my best. No, but did not approve of the prospect of him marrying his current fiance.
Yeah.
And like that, sure, that is a point. It feels like from all the reports that the Queen was the one who had the most against that. So going for the father instead, I'm not sure where that went. But yeah, I definitely consider this a mystery from when I dug more into this. I can tell you the title as well. I was considering if I was going to start with it since to like set the tone, since I knew it was worse. But you'll probably not be surprised to know that this is referred to as the Nepalese royal massacre.
Ooh. Well, yeah, that's so brutal. Ew.
But the thing is also, like, just looking at the events, like, fine, he had, there does not appear to be any weapons, any doubts regarding neither his training or access to weapons and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But just so many people killed, and him being described as like, no, he had his gun and he just walked around and shot people, checked they were dead and shot them. I just feel that at some point people would panic and either straight out flee or try to fight him back or so. But no, the reports just describe him having basically, no, this is a static shooting gallery and I'm going through it, which does not sound too credible to me either.
Yeah. It just doesn't add up.
No.
But also, yeah, why would you cover it up? I mean, I guess if the entire bloodline is almost gone, then...
Apart from the last king.
Yeah.
Which is, slightly sneaky, but...
Yeah. Oh, it's so bad. So bad.
It was bad, but that was my crime.
It was a really interesting one. I've never heard of it. And good choice. We can get a little intermission with that.
Yeah, I'll need a top up after this, I think.
Okay.
Let's top up our drinks and then less gruesome, more royal criminalities.
Mine's not royal. Mine's blue blood.
Oh, blue blood works.
Yeah.
Let's go for that. I want to hear about your crime.
Okay.
Tell me, please.
So I'm going to ask you, have you heard of the Duchess de Choiseul-Praslin?
I've not. I've heard the second name because we were looking at pronunciation, but no, I do not know who this is or what this is about.
Okay, cool. Well, it all begins with a wedding. On the 18th of October, 1825, 17-year-old Françoise, or Franny, Alterice Rosalba Sebastiani, married 19-year-old Charles de Choiseul. My French is so rusty, I'm just losing it.
You're compensating with a lovely glass of champagne in your hand.
Yeah, we've had a bit too many. Had a few too many. Oh dear. So she was a French duchess and an heiress. She came from a very wealthy family, and he had a title. And it's 1825, so maybe you don't need much more than that. They had 10 kids, but
Well, okay, that came out
we're
of nowhere.
launching right into it. Yeah,
Yep.
it didn't take long. They had 10 kids, but they also had a lot of miscarriages in the meantime. And Francoise's mother, she had actually died giving birth to her. So whether it was, something hereditary or whether it was something else, we don't know. But yeah, it was pretty bad.
I'm sorry, do we have a time span for this?
For the kids?
Well, like you just launched into 10 kids and then also a lot of miscarriages, which is horrible. But
About 15 years. So
they were
10
industrious.
kids within 15 years. So it was pretty busy. The light was on. The I don't know, furnace was happening. Oh.
The sock was on the door.
The sock was on the door. I'm more thinking like a factory conveyor belt. And
Oh no.
I can't help it. It's just, 10 kids. I'm sorry. That's efficiency. Like, you're, not saying pumping it out, but yeah, anyway. Like many people at the time, they kept a governess. And by 1841, so this is 16 years. So
don't trust me for numbers.
So 16 years after their marriage, they'd hired someone called Henriette de Lucy. Unfortunately, it was widely reported that Henrietta was having an affair with Charles, and as you can imagine, it didn't go down very well with his wife Francoise. Francoise, and by June 1947, so 6-ish years later, Francoise had demanded that Charles fire Henriette. He refused, though, so Francoise threatened divorce, and because of her family's wealth, it would have had a really significant effect on Charles's financial situation, but it also would have caused serious problems for their daughters. Sons didn't matter so much, but for their daughters, if they'd have lost wealth and had divorced parents in the 1800s, then they lose station, and it makes it very difficult to find a good match for their daughters in marriage.
Oh, and this is all. I was trying to think of it possibly a bit more modern, but I realized that the daughters would have presumably stuck with the patrilineal side,
and
thus being out of cash.
It's not so much about the cash, but whenever you think about having 10 daughters and you need 10 kids and you need a dowry and to set up the sons, it's like splitting any fortune 10 ways is going to be a problem, and also have the parents stay afloat.
That's true.
But having a divorce back then, it's already pretty bad. So you'd think this would be enough incentive for Charles to fire Henriette, but in the end, it seems like Francoise actually did it herself. So whenever Henriette was fired, she moved into a lodging house run by Madame Renaud. Henrietta felt like she was entitled to a letter of recommendation, so she, went back and said, "Come on, I've been with you for 6 years. Can you write one?" But
I mean,
you're banging my husband.
Yeah,
it was never confirmed. She denied that it happened. She said, "Look, I know she really did go to Francoise and beg her almost for a letter of recommendation because she didn't think she'd get a future position as a governess without it."
Sorry, I thought it was more clear cut than that.
Well,
at first,
maybe it was. Like, all reports seem to be pretty clear that it was definitely a thing, but we don't know. Like, we really don't know. And Francoise was pretty convinced that Henrietta was having an affair with her husband, and saw it as an opportunity to, I guess, get a little bit of revenge. So she refused to write the letter of recommendation, and sure enough, Henrietta couldn't get a new position. And Henrietta was really unhappy because she was insisting. She spent 6 years of her life raising their kids, and 10 kids, whoa, that's a big job. And by all accounts, she seemed to do a pretty good job at it. But no, she couldn't find another post, or so it seemed, and that was it until the summer of 1847. So by this stage, it's a couple of months after the firing. It's the 17th of August. So Charles and Francoise are living separately but within the same house. So it's I'll show you a picture. This is the house. It is in the middle of Paris. It's in
That's a fancy estate.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's in the 8th arrondissement in Paris, and it's it's like a mini palace. It's really beautiful, and it still stands today. But they had totally separate apartments within the home, so they essentially lived separately but shared a front door and shared their kids. So on the evening of the 17th of August, they had each been out with friends and done their own thing, and then they returned home. And it was late when the kids had gone to bed, and even later whenever they went to bed themselves. Now, the Duke and the Duchess's apartments were on the ground floor, and they were divided by an antechamber that opened out onto a flight of stairs. So if you see in that, it's not like the ground floor and the first floor.
Yeah.
It's kind of a duplex situation with the bedroom and then living quarters upstairs. And then the space in the roof with the windows is where the servants sleep and live.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's much like Amsterdam. Any of the top floor apartments were usually either storage or it's where the servants would have lived.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to the attic of my first apartment here, and that makes sense.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically they were connected by this antechamber, and their bedrooms led out into it. And you know, they didn't have much interaction. It was pretty quiet in the house until about 4 or 5 in the morning, when the Duchess rang her bell, signalling that she required assistance. And that wasn't entirely unusual. I mean, it's a little bit strange, but it's not, you know, it's not shockingly strange.
Duchesses have needs, and these things will happen.
Yeah. So her femme de chambre, her maid, Madame Leclerc, heard the bell. She rose. She went to see what was going on, but whenever she arrived, the door was locked and she couldn't enter. She was considering going back to bed, so she said, but then she heard groans, and she tried to open the door again, and decided the best thing to do was to try to get some help. By the time she'd gone off, got some other servants, and came back, there were definite cries at this point, and there was commotion inside the room. And they tried to get through the door, but there was no way they were getting in. 2 other servants tried to enter the Duchess's room another way. Another one ended up in the back garden, and they could see in through the bedroom window to see something was happening in her bedroom. They could also make out a figure who looked similar to the Duke, but again, it's dark, it's difficult to tell.
Yeah.
So they end up, as 2 of the servants are trying to get in another way, the bedroom door turns out to be open suddenly. So they return to the original bit.
Well, they didn't have someone like posted at the door.
No.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it seems like one of them went into the garden, 2 of them went around the other side, and by the time those 2 came back to the bedroom door, it was unlocked.
Procedure, people, you need to cover the exits.
Oh, sorry, it was more than unlocked. It was open. And yeah, you do. And they smelt gunpowder. At this point, they're all so freaked out in the dark in the late early hours of the morning. They're all freaked out, and no one wants to go in. So they end up trying to get more help because, you know, too many cooks apparently isn't a thing with servants trying to take care of their masters.
I mean, I can imagine that a lot of them were feeling slightly out of their element.
Yeah, for sure. But it's kind of interesting after your story with everyone being brave as anything.
Well, yes, according to reports.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, this is according to mostly the servants themselves. They end up trying to find the Duke, and the Duke removes the latch from his door. They hadn't gone to try to seek him during the whole commotion. They'd been too focused on her, but they were knocking on his door, and he unlatches his door and opens it, and the servants, it's quoted as they discovered, quote, a frightful sight. He was covered in blood. The Duchess was lying in a pool of her own blood. whenever they're in her room at the same time. This is all. So imagine this is all there in the antechamber. There's like one's running into her room. He's like in his room. He's covered in blood. She's lying on the floor and there's blood all over the place. And the blood on the floor by her has started to coagulate. It's like, it's a total mess. Like there's a massive,
there's a logical
brutal
explanation
struggle.
for all of this.
They look a little bit closer and they see there's a trail of blood between the Duke's room and her room.
Wait, this was supposed to be a mystery, right?
Yeah. It seems pretty clear cut right now, but it gets kind of interesting. But yeah, she had some really deep wounds from her throat. And her bedroom was, total mess, not just with the obvious, but also it seemed to have been trashed a little bit. Like it kind of looked like maybe a robbery. So this is a direct quote from one of the servants after they were interviewed by police. A little table had been overthrown. Porcelains and some objects of art were spread about. The drapery on the wall bore the traces of a bloody hand, as did the rope of the bell, which was used to call the maid. And finally, between the clasped fingers of the Duchess's left hand, there was some of the murderer's hair, whilst a more considerable quantity of the hair pulled out in the struggle was scattered here and there on the floor. And there was coagulated blood on that hair, so it seemed like she'd ripped out a fair bit of the hair of the attacker. There was also a work table that had been overturned behind a sofa, and at this point the Duchess's head was resting on that sofa, and the sofa was totally covered in blood. All of her nightclothes were covered in blood, the carpet, the furniture, just blood everywhere. And the Duke at this point is looking at it all going, poor woman, which is the monster who has assassinated her? And the servants ran off to try to get assistance. The Duchess wasn't actually dead. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you're pulling a face, but... Yeah,
I was mostly pulling the face at the quote because
it's a bit.
If it's your spouse and you're saying that, that's basically,
doesn't sound great.
Either you're in a play or you're guilty as I don't know what.
I actually have a photo of the floor plan of all this stuff that's upturned and covered in blood and everything.
Very. Vivid bloodstains, yes.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's weird, right?
We're going to have to post this because this is weird.
Yeah.
I like it, but it's weird. And we do know that both of us appreciate a good floor plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, I mean, it's everywhere. It's absolutely everywhere. And it doesn't make a lot of sense.
But it's not connected either, which is weird to me.
No. Mm-hmm. So... The servants were understandably not getting any calmer and ran off to fetch a doctor. Whenever it seems like multiple doctors and surgeons arrived, they realised there was really nothing they could do, and the Duchess not long after died. It was about 2 hours later. Meanwhile, the Procureur du Roi, so the prefect of police, if you know, as well as a lot of the most well-spoken of police officers had arrived. It was the ones who
Are they
had the
ranked
best.
by eloquence?
Well,
or?
they're right. Sorry, the well-spoken of, as in.
Oh, well-spoken of.
Not well-spoken. No one cares about their.
I did not hear the of there, which made a lot of difference.
No, it's really the ones that had a good reputation because, hey, we've got...
I get that.
Yeah, okay.
As long as we have the of. But
it's late. I'm tired. It's King's Day. Like, let me chill. Let's just do Corrections Corner next week. So, all of the police officers arrive, the surgeons arrive. No one really can do very much, but all of these police officers sort of swoop in and take a bunch of notes and clearly start doing floor plan. And I guess they get out their watercolors because those bloodstains in that floor plan are crazy. Anyway, they interviewed everyone in the house and everyone who entered it afterwards, and actually took everyone into custody who wasn't of blue blood. because they follow a different process.
Yeah, of course.
They also searched the grounds and they tried to determine if there had been a robbery committed or attempted, but the garden was described as being examined with the most minute care. But no, they determined that no one had either entered or left, and they didn't find any traces of someone breaking in or out. And as a result of all of that, they decided that it was definitely the Duchess's own husband, the Duke Choiseul-Praslin, which, I mean, it sounds kind of obvious, and the hair as well, you'd think matches. It was similar, but I mean, it's before DNA testing, so who knows? And there's quite a prompt and detailed investigation that follows, but we're only going to go about another week beyond this in terms of the story.
Okay.
The police end up looking at the writings of Francoise, and they discover she is crazy about her husband despite the affair. She really loves him. And yeah, it's kind of beautiful. They did have a volatile relationship. There were violent confrontations. Even the household staff had also said it. So, you know, everything kind of lined up in that sense. And aside from the hair and the bloody trail, there were some objects that were found within the Duchess's room that belonged to the Duke. So they had a pistol that was loaded. They also found the butt of the gun was embedded with, and it's a direct quote, fragments of flesh. And on the face and skull of the victim, there was found trace of blows, which retained the marks of the filigree within the weapon. Yeah, I'm not giving you the gory details, but you can imagine the whole scene was pretty brutal.
Yep.
They also found within the Duke's room a fresh bloodstained dagger. Well, sorry, they found the handle of a fresh bloodstained dagger, but the blade was gone and it was never found.
Huh.
Which is interesting when everyone in the house was either placed under house arrest or removed.
Mm-hmm.
And they found no traces of a struggle within the garden or anywhere else. They also found in the Duke's fireplace a handkerchief and papers, as well as several pieces of bloody cord, which were in the pocket of the Duke's dressing gown. But the Duke was a pretty big guy, and the Duchess, one of the reasons that she was so upset about the alleged affair is because after all the kids, she was described as being less mobile. She was overweight, and yeah, she was jealous. Like, she got married whenever she was 17, and she was young, and she was beautiful, and she was slender, and there are a lot of accounts that say she was no longer this, and, you know, she wasn't even 40 yet. And yeah, and she was sad, and it's, I don't know, I just find it super sad. But on the other hand, she also shouldn't have been that difficult to overpower. There were a few other bits and pieces that were incriminating. The Duke had some scratches and bites, but there were no comments on how old those were. And of course, the servant who was in the garden, who had said they thought they saw the Duke in her room around the time of the murder. Now, they didn't see anything beyond the Duke in her room or someone who was looking like the Duke, and it's dark.
Yeah.
All it needs to be is the right silhouette. According to the servant, during the commotion, he ran around the gardens at the back of the house, hoping to enter her room from the back window, and all he said was he perceived a man of the same height and appearance as the Duke, who, hearing the noise of his footsteps, withdrew suddenly into the interior of the bedrooms, abruptly quitting one of the windows, which had just been opened, in order, without doubt, to make it believe that the window, that it was by that window that the murderer had obtained entrance. So with all of that evidence, the police were really interrogating him at the home with great interest. The Duke basically claimed he was woken up by a commotion. He jumped out of bed, tried to go towards his wife's chambers, heard a cry, wasn't sure what was happening, and went back to his room with a loaded gun, and with that gun, entered his wife's room. Bear in mind, this is the gun that had all the flesh and stuff embedded in it, so it's sort of not really adding up. With the pistol in hand, he entered his wife's dressing room and called her by name, but there was no answer. He said he left the dressing room, lit a candle, and then went into the bedroom, and he claimed he unsuccessfully attempted to defend his wife from some unknown person. The fight was what created the noise and the commotion, and it was shortly after that he said he found his wife injured, and he threw himself in the body of her and embraced her, and that's where all the blood came from.
Of course.
Yeah, and he said as he was fighting off the attacker, the servants had appeared at her door, and he heard the cries of the servants to open the door, but he didn't open it because I guess he was dealing with the assailant. By the time the servants were entering, the Duke had left to wash up. Yeah, he was covered in the blood from embracing his wife, and he claimed that he was washing up to try to remove blood from his clothes so he wouldn't upset their kids. Also, the maid had reported that whenever the Duchess was pronounced dead, the Duke was totally distraught and was really dramatic about the whole thing. So he was tearing at his hair, which is kind of an interesting one. And he appeared desperate, saying, "Poor children, who will apprise them of this? They no longer have a mother." But
it's okay. Like a couple of points. First off, this is minor. This might just be the general narrative, but
go for it.
He said that the commotion woke him up,
Yep.
and he went in to check.
And then he said he was the commotion.
He created the commotion by finding that, yeah.
That's exactly how the police felt about all this, by the way.
And he fought off an assailant. He embraced his wife, got all bloody, went back to wash up, which is okay. And then the servants came, and then he had that wonderfully surprised, dramatic, very natural response, like, "Oh no, she's dead."
But she wasn't dead at that point. She wasn't dead until 2 hours later. So he had the "oh no" bit, but then it was "no, she's still alive." So he was just sad because she'd been attacked. And it was a couple of hours later after she died that he did the whole big extended bit, tearing at his hair. Oh, I always drop something on mic.
That's an important tradition.
Clearly. Anyway, was there a further question to that?
Those were the main ones. There are a lot of questions in general, but okay. I'll settle for those.
Okay, so at this point, the police were pretty certain it was him. It wasn't looking great. His answers were just dodgy as anything, as you have just pointed out. And to them, it's like, this doesn't make any sense. And if what you're saying doesn't make any sense, then we've got to assume you're guilty. But because of his station, they couldn't arrest him. They had to, let me find it. Yeah, he couldn't be arrested or tried or sentenced in any kind of traditional way. He had to be held under house arrest while they waited to call in peers who were of royal ordinance or of nobility, so they could put together what was known as a trial of peers. And until they made a decision on the next course of action, they weren't even allowed to arrest him. So he was just put under house arrest. It did seem like he had arsenic poisoning at that point. And yeah, so they end up taking him into custody, and he's sick for about 6 days and then dies. And they decide there's essentially nothing they can do. So they annul the trial because they have no defendant. Now, he never confessed to a murder. The police are pretty much convinced he did it. However, there are quite a few things that didn't really add up. So, first of all, the arsenic thing. He had 3 vials which were in his room. One was filled with nitric acid. One was filled with white powder, which we think ended up being arsenic. We're not sure. And the third was something called, I'm probably saying this wrong, laudanum. And it's...
Oh, laudanum.
Laudanum? You know what this is? It's got opium in
I
it.
can't give you a proper chemical
It's-
breakdown, but
Yeah,
I know of it, yes.
it's 10% opium. Yeah, it's 10% opium. I did look it up, but yeah. So the first poisoning, doctors were able to administer a strong emetic. Do you know what that is?
Not off the top.
I have no idea. Apparently, they administered a strong emetic to counteract the arsenic, and he seemed okay. Like, he wasn't great, but he seemed okay. But yeah, it was a week later to the day. He died at 5 o'clock in the evening, and it seemed like a slow poisoning by arsenic. And he was completely supervised during this time, so presumably he wouldn't have had access to it. He was moved from being under house arrest to being in custody because of the initial poisoning. They all said that he was trying to commit suicide, but it wasn't quite working out. Police did also have a look at Henriette to see if she was guilty. They actually held her for 3 months. They interrogated her, but eventually released her because they didn't have enough evidence. Now, she didn't have an alibi, and she had a pretty good motive. And poisoning is a really female crime, and she would have had access to his room and the servant's exit.
But if she was poisoning him
After the crime.
But
Why?
I mean, it feels like
Revenge?
if they were revenge towards him.
Well, revenge towards her and the family. Like, I mean, she didn't get her reference. She wasted 6 years on these kids. And maybe she wanted everyone to suffer.
But, okay, so the two options the two alternatives here, we have either there was some ducal hanky-panky going down, or there wasn't.
Yeah.
If there was, then she was probably in a position to instigate or turn the husband against the wife in a violent manner.
Yeah.
But if that was the case, then there had been hanky-panky. Then, to me, it feels weird that she would be blaming someone for wasting this time if she was doing the behind-the-back hanky-panky with the fancy blue blood dude.
Yeah.
And also, if that was the case, she probably wouldn't want to poison him.
Unless they did it together and she was worried that he would get away with it because he had the jury of peers and she was a commoner.
Okay, so this scenario, they're both brutally killing the Duchess together.
I think maybe if the Duke had a violent relationship with his wife anyway, and the servant saw him in the room, I mean, the cord thing is weird enough in itself, right? There's a lot of weird things here. And
But I mean, if that was the case, then she could just basically sick him on her and not need to get her own hands dirty, I guess.
maybe she wanted to.
Okay, that's not impossible. I didn't think of that. The other option was just like if there was no hanky-panky, then she would probably not be able to get him to murder his wife.
Yeah.
In that way.
No, I don't think so either, unless it was just a coincidence and he was trying to kill her out of having a clean break because he then gets her money and he doesn't have the stigma of the divorce on his kids.
True.
But you'd think you'd go for an easier method. But then again, like, who knows?
Okay, the joint assault sounds like the more probable thing.
There's one other sort of interesting thing. So it was a kind of sad end for the kids. The kids were split up and raised by other family members because who can take in 10 kids? But over the years that followed, there was a lot of reports of corruption within the police.
Oh.
And that they hadn't actually investigated it properly.
Huh.
And there was a common perception that they had allowed him to either commit suicide or they had poisoned him because they didn't want to have to deal with any further scandal within the family, and it was a tidy way to end
like
the
a tidy,
whole
clean way
controversy.
to. Huh. Okay.
The other sort of side note there is Henriette, she ended up disappearing off to the US afterwards, and she ended up marrying someone, and she became a well-known enough socialite in New York afterwards. She did all right for herself.
Okay.
But it also may have contributed to the French Revolution.
Hey, you're very big on the butterflies.
Yeah, I kind of am. So they were members of the royal court of King Louis Philippe, the first, of course.
Of course.
Of course. And because of this scandal of not only the murder but the subsequent death by suicide, it added to the public feeling that the king and his court weren't trustworthy or honourable.
Oh.
So whenever King Louis was forced to abdicate the throne and fled to England, it just reinforced the whole idea. But a lot of people of the time felt like that this incident was the catalyst for the whole thing, and it directly contributed to the start of the French Revolution, which was 1848. So there wasn't actually that much time between the whole thing. Like, it was a year.
Huh.
Was it a year? Let me double check. 48?
No. That is definitely a connection enough for me. So yeah.
But yeah, that was the end of it. I don't doubt that the Duke was somehow involved, but I just think there's a lot more to it than that.
Oh, definitely. No. My weird faces towards this being a mystery was more that I thought this was going to be a pivot into the Duke trying to explain his innocence, but
No.
When we're talking circumstances and possible accomplices, that is more mysterious and unclear.
Yeah.
And I do really like you nailing the thread of the butterfly effect.
I'm glad it's not getting old. I guess this is our last royal crime, at least for a while. So yeah. But that's the end of my story. I know I was debating whether or not to do this one because it's arguably not a true mystery, but for me it was up in the air enough to go, hey, I'm doing it.
It's unclear, and in my book I would count this as unsolved. I'm completely on board. I did like it.
Oh dear.
Well, no. I did like it. I'm just feeling both slightly bad and slightly happy over my weird remarks during the course of this narrative, and I hope it wasn't too disruptive. But
no, I think it was good. Oh, it's been an interesting week.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the end of our Royal King's Day special.
It is. Now it's time to go out and paint the town orange, I guess.
Oh, I'm going to bed. Like, no, all the drinking has been well and truly done. It's been a long, long day.
Yeah, it's true.
And I have had more orange than I can muster. We both got the party pack with our hats and our everything.
True. I still need to get some orange flour.
I think it's too late now. It's probably all on sale tomorrow.
I don't think it is, actually. Like last year, it was the first time I tried it.
Can we explain? Fla is like cold custard that comes in 1 liter cartons.
Yeah.
And you sort of pour it out and eat it out of a bowl. Like, I guess like Americans would eat chocolate pudding out of a tub.
Kind of.
Like
yeah,
out of little
it's like a dessert custard, but really light.
I love Fla.
It's light and fluffy and easy to down.
I don't think I've ever had orange Fla.
I had my first one last year around King's Day. Orange.
Not just coloured orange.
But both. It is
Okay.
definitely coloured, but it also
apple.
has the flavour of the citrusy orangey fruit.
Okay, cool.
But no, I had the first time last year, and I have a friend who was like, no, you really have to try this. And I tried it, and oh, this is very good. I'm like, oh, you need to buy as much of this as you can because it's just King's Day and it's going to disappear. And it was still in the shops for like months.
Really?
After. Oh, yeah. So I'm not feeling panicked. I know it will still be there. I'm pretty sure it was well into autumn, possibly winter.
Oh dear. You know
And I checked the expiry dates. It wasn't just leftovers.
Oh, that stuff can last forever.
I can imagine.
I want to know if they do a Koningsdag Mona. Have you ever had Mona?
I think I've had one type at least. When I hear Mona, I'm just thinking of the tiny puddings with the pearly, chocolatey ball things. But I do know they do
No.
different things as
Yeah.
well. But I think I've had one kind.
Pearly chocolatey bowl things.
Yeah, that's not the most
Yeah, I'm not
scientifically
picturing it.
accurate naming, I suppose. But
No. I'm going to get some of that. See if they have the orange one.
We'll
Whatever
see.
it is.
And I'll get the orange flower.
It'll be good. Why didn't we do this before King's Day? Whatever. I'm going to see if I can have it for breakfast. Perfect. That's what I need. After a day and a half of heavy drinking, I need weird,
Perfect.
foamy sugar stuff or orange custard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sounds perfect.
That's a perfect high note to end things on. Wherever you are this weekend, we hope you have your equivalent of orange custard.
And we're also very happy that you're here. We thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you for listening. Happy King's Day. Google some pictures.
And look ours up at crimebythebar.com.
Yeah, we will post some up. We'll be merry at least. Okay. You can hit us up on Twitter at crimebythebar. Or of course email us if you're feeling super chatty. crimebythebar@gmail.com. We love your emails. It's it makes us super happy. And yeah,
That's it for this week.
I think so.
We'll be back on Tuesday with more red-blooded crime, I guess.
Yeah. Or cold-blooded crime. Dun dun dun.
That too. Dun, dun, dun.
That's a good theme. We should do that. I already picked mine out for next week.
I have not. I need to research.
Okay. Well, farewell.
Farewell. Have a nice weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm sleepy. Plus, I feel like we're in the gutter too much. You're looking at me like I'm responsible. No, do I need to restart this whole fucking thing?